I've been working the night shift at a gas station off Route 9 for about 7 months now. And before you ask, yeah, I know. Nobody wants to work the graveyard shift at a gas station in the middle of nowhere. But when you're 26, drowning in student loans, and the only other option is moving back in with your parents in Ohio, you take what you can get. The station is called Howell's, not a chain, not a franchise, just a beat-up little place owned by a guy named Harold who I've met exactly twice. Once during my interview, which was basically him asking if I had a pulse and could count change, and once when he stopped by to fix the ice machine in August. The place is ancient, flickering fluorescent lights, a cooler that hums so loud it sounds like it's trying to communicate, and a bathroom I've cleaned exactly once and vowed never to enter again. But here's the thing about Howell's. It's not the building that bothers me, it's the location. Route 9 cuts through about 40 miles of nothing, and I mean nothing. Pine trees on both sides so thick you can't see 10 feet into them. No cell signal for about a 20-minute stretch in either direction. The nearest town, if you can even call it that, is Ridley, population 900-something, about 12 miles east. The only reason anyone stops at Howell's is because it's the last gas for 30 miles heading west. During the day, it's fine. Truckers, families on road trips, the occasional hiker, normal people buying normal things. But at night, between midnight and 5 a.m., sometimes nobody comes at all. Just me, the humming cooler, and the weird static that comes through the ancient radio Harold left behind the counter. I didn't mind the quiet at first. Honestly, I liked it. I'd read, scroll Reddit on the spotty Wi-Fi, sometimes just sit outside and stare at the sky. You've never seen stars until you've seen them from the middle of nowhere with zero light pollution. It's actually beautiful. Peaceful even. But that changed about 3 months into the job. It was a Wednesday night, or technically Thursday morning, I guess, around 2 a.m. I was behind the counter reading some paperback thriller I'd grabbed from the bargain bin at a thrift store. The radio was doing its static thing. No customers for over 2 hours. Completely normal night. Then the bell above the door chimed. I looked up, and there was a woman standing just inside the entrance. She was maybe mid-40s, wearing a long dark coat despite it being the middle of June. Her hair was wet, not damp, wet, like she'd just stepped out of a shower. But it hadn't rained in days. I remember that specifically because Harold had been complaining about the dry spell killing his garden. She just stood there, didn't move toward the aisles, didn't look at the snacks or the drinks. She just stood in the doorway and stared at me. "Hey there," I said, trying to be normal. "Can I help you with anything?" She didn't answer, but she smiled. And something about that smile made my skin crawl in a way I couldn't explain. It was too wide. Not like she was happy, more like she was performing happiness. Like someone who'd read about smiling but had never actually seen one. "Ma'am, you okay?" She tilted her head to the side, slowly, way too far, like her neck was on a hinge or something. And then she said, in this voice that was somehow too clear, too crisp, like it wasn't affected by the space between us at all, "Do you have a phone I can use?" There's a payphone outside on the side of the building," I said. "It might work, sometimes it doesn't." She shook her head, still smiling, still tilting. "I need to use your phone." Now, there's a landline behind the counter. Harold insisted on keeping it because cell towers are a government leash or whatever. I'd used it maybe 3 times total, but something, gut instinct, survival mode, whatever you want to call it, told me not to let this woman behind the counter. "I'm sorry, the store phone's for employees only, but the payphone should." "I need to use your phone." Same words, same tone, exactly the same, like a recording being played back. Her smile hadn't moved, her eyes hadn't blinked, and I realized, with this slow, creeping horror, that she hadn't blinked once since she walked in. "I'm going to have to ask you to leave," I said. My voice cracked a little. I'm man enough to admit that. She stared at me for what felt like a full minute. Then she turned around, walked out the door, and disappeared. Not walked away, disappeared. I rushed to the window and looked outside. The parking lot was empty. No car, no headlights on the road, just the moths circling the overhead lamp and the tree line beyond. She was gone. I locked the door. I know I wasn't supposed to during operating hours, but I locked it. And I sat behind the counter with my hands shaking until 5:30 a.m. when the morning guy, Danny, showed up. I told Danny about it. He's been working at Hal's for 11 years, knows every weird thing that's ever happened on Route 9. When I described the woman, he got this look on his face. Not scared exactly, more like resigned. He poured himself a coffee, sat on the stool behind the counter, and said, "She comes around every couple of months. Different people see her. Nobody knows who she is." I waited for the punchline. There wasn't one. "What do you mean, nobody knows? Has anyone called the cops?" Danny laughed. Not a funny laugh. "And tell them what? A weird lady came in and asked to use the phone?" "Brother, the cops around here have actual problems. Meth labs, missing hikers, drunk drivers on Route 9. They're not coming out for a creepy lady." Fair point. But it didn't make me feel any better. Things were quiet for about 2 weeks after that. I started convincing myself it was just some stranded traveler who was maybe a little off. Maybe she was on something. Maybe she was having a mental health crisis. There were rational explanations. I clung to them like a life raft. Then the tapping started. It was a Saturday night, around 3 a.m., dead quiet as usual. I was restocking cigarettes behind the counter when I heard it. A soft, rhythmic tapping on the front window. Tap, tap, tap. Evenly spaced, deliberate. I looked at the window. Nothing there. Just the parking lot and the dark beyond. The tapping stopped. I went back to restocking. 20 seconds later, tap, tap, tap. Same rhythm, same window. I walked over and pressed my face to the glass, cupping my hands around my eyes to see past the reflection. Empty, completely empty. But as I stood there, the tapping started again. And this time, I realized it wasn't coming from the outside of the window. It was coming from underneath the building. Hal's is built on a raised foundation. There's a crawl space underneath, maybe 3 feet tall. Harold mentioned it once, said he stored old equipment down there years ago. There's an access panel on the outside of the building, around the back. I'd never opened it, never wanted to. The tapping continued, steady, patient, like whatever was down there had all the time in the world. I didn't investigate. I'm not an idiot. I turned the radio up, sat in the center of the store as far from the walls as possible, and waited for sunrise. The tapping stopped around 4:15 a.m., just stopped, like a switch flipped. When Danny came in the next morning, I told him. He didn't laugh this time. He just nodded slowly and said, "Yeah, it does that sometimes." "It? What's it?" Danny shrugged. "Whatever lives under the station." I stared at him. "Danny, what the hell does that mean?" He looked at me like I was a kid asking where babies come from, patient but tired. "Look, man, I've been here 11 years. I've heard the tapping. I've seen the woman. I've seen other stuff too. Shadows moving in the tree line when there's no wind. The security camera picking up shapes at 3 a.m. that aren't there when you check. You learn to just let it be. Don't go looking. Don't go outside between 2 and 4. Don't open the crawl space. Just ride your shift out and go home. Don't go outside between 2 and 4. He said it so casually, like he was telling me not to eat the tuna sandwich from the hot case. I should have quit right then. I know that. You're probably screaming it at your screen right now. But like I said, student loans. And honestly, during the day, when the sun was out and the world made sense, it all felt manageable, explainable. Old building making noises, wildlife under the foundation, a weird transient lady on drugs. Daylight has this incredible ability to make you rationalize absolutely anything. But then came the night that broke me. It was October, a Tuesday. The temperature had dropped hard that week, first real cold snap of the season. I had a space heater running behind the counter and a thermos of coffee. Everything was normal until about 1:30 a.m. when a pickup truck pulled in. Old Ford, rust on the fenders, the kind of truck you see 100 times a day in rural areas. A guy got out. 30s, flannel shirt, baseball cap, completely normal looking. He filled up his tank, then came inside to pay. We made small talk. He was heading to his brother's place about 50 miles west, complained about the cold. I rang him up. He bought a pack of gum and a Red Bull. Totally mundane interaction. But as he was leaving, he stopped at the door, turned around, and his face had changed. Not physically, I mean his expression. He looked scared, genuinely, bone-deep scared. "Hey man," he said quietly, "there's a woman standing at the edge of the woods." Every hair on my body stood up. I pulled in and she was just standing there, at the tree line, right at the edge of the parking lot. I thought maybe she was a hitchhiker or something, but she's just standing there, staring at the building. She's not moving. I didn't want to look. God, I didn't want to look. But I walked to the window and peered toward the tree line on the west side of the lot. And there she was. Same dark coat, same wet hair, standing perfectly still about 30 feet from the building, right where the gravel met the pines. The overhead lamp didn't quite reach her. She was half in light, half in shadow. But I could see her face. She was smiling. "You know her?" the truck guy asked. "No," I lied. "Probably just a hitchhiker. You should get going." He didn't need to be told twice. He practically jogged to his truck and peeled out so fast, his tires kicked gravel against the window. And then it was just me and her. She didn't move. For 20 minutes, I timed it. She stood at the tree line and stared at the building, at me. That smile never wavered. The wind was blowing her coat, so I knew she was physically there. Not a hallucination, not a trick of the light. A real person, or whatever she was, standing in my parking lot at 2 a.m., smiling like she knew something I didn't. Then she took a step forward. One step, slow, deliberate. And then she stopped again, like she was testing something, seeing if I'd react. I backed away from the window, checked that the door was locked. It was. I grabbed the baseball bat Harold keeps behind the counter. Aluminum, Louisville Slugger, the one comforting thing in this entire building. And I waited. Another step, then another. She was crossing the parking lot in these impossibly slow increments, and I noticed something that made my throat close up. Her feet weren't touching the ground. Not really. Her shoes were just above the gravel, by maybe an inch, like she was walking on something I couldn't see. She reached the front of the building, right up to the window, and she pressed her face against the glass. Her breath didn't fog it. That's the detail that haunts me. It was 40 degrees outside, and her breath didn't fog the glass. She raised one hand and tapped. Tap, tap, tap. Same rhythm as the crawl space. And then she spoke, muffled through the glass, but I heard every word perfectly. "Let me in. I need to use your phone." I called Danny. At 2:30 a.m., he picked up immediately, like he'd been waiting for the call. "Is she at the window?" he asked. He already knew. "What do I do?" "Don't look at her. Don't talk to her. Go sit in the back storage room, and don't come out until sunrise. She can't get in. She's never gotten in." "What is she, Danny?" There was a long pause, so long I thought the call dropped. Then he said very quietly, "I don't know. But she was here before Harold. She was here before the station. Some of the old-timers in Ridley say she's been on Route 9 since the road was built in the 50s, maybe longer." I went to the storage room, closed the door, sat between two pallets of motor oil and bottled water, holding a baseball bat across my knees, and listened to the tapping on the window for 2 straight hours. At 4:01 a.m., it stopped. I didn't come out until 5:30 when Danny arrived. He brought me a breakfast sandwich and didn't say a word about it, just clapped me on the shoulder and said, "You survived." That was 3 weeks ago. I'm still working at Hal's. I know, but I've already got applications out. I'm waiting to hear back from a warehouse gig in the city, something with day shifts and fluorescent lighting, and 100 coworkers around me at all times, something far away from Route 9. But until then, every Thursday and Saturday night, I sit behind that counter. I keep the doors locked after midnight. I don't look at the tree line. I don't open the crawl space. And if I hear tapping, on the window, on the floor, on the walls, I put my headphones on, turn the volume all the way up, and wait for the sun. Because Danny told me one more thing that morning, something I wish I could unhear. Before Hal's was a gas station, it was a church, a tiny backwoods chapel built in 1953. It burned down in 1971. 7 people died inside. They never found the cause of the fire, and they never recovered all the bodies. But they did find something in the crawl space. A phone. An old rotary phone. Melted halfway to nothing, but still connected to a line that, according to the fire marshal's report, had never been installed. It was off the hook, and when the fireman picked up the receiver and held it to his ear, just out of curiosity, just for a second, he heard breathing on the other end. So yeah, If you're ever driving down Route 9 late at night and you see a little gas station with flickering lights, just keep driving. Don't stop. Don't fill up. And whatever you do, don't answer the phone.